buried, where so much of New York City history is buried, is a document of the inequality that has existed in this city for centuries.
Headline stories today. At least 10 people are killed, including 8 children, in a missile strike on a densely populated refugee camp in Gaza.
We are here on the rubbles, on the ruins, on the debris of the house that used to be the house of Abu Hatab family.
Israeli missiles also hit a tower block in Gaza City where international media outlets are based. There are no reports of casualties. It was reportedly evacuated prior to the attack after a warning from Israel. While in Israel itself, air raid sirens ring out across Tel Aviv, with people taking to emergency shelters after the Hamas military wing launches dozens of rockets at the city. Tensions run high at pro-Palestinian rallies across the world as police disperse crowds condemning Israeli aggression. Coming live from Moscow, this is RT International. My name's Ewan O'Neill, and 30 minutes of news and views start now. Civilians in Gaza remain in the firing line. A warning: you may find the following footage disturbing. 10 people were killed in the early hours of the morning in an Israeli airstrike near the Al-Shati refugee camp in Gaza. 8 of the dead were children. The facility is the 3rd largest refugee camp in Gaza and is known as the beach camp for its close proximity to the Mediterranean coast. The victims are being treated in a local hospital. Israeli forces have yet to acknowledge the bombing, but have stressed that its operations are carefully directed at rocket launch sites. Israel claims that Hamas deliberately embeds its military infrastructure in civilian areas, including hospitals and schools. And the IDF says it takes all possible precautions to avoid harming civilians when striking. Meanwhile, a 6-month-old baby whose mother and elder siblings died in that strike survived. Neighbours described events to a local journalist.
We are here on the rubbles, on the ruins, on the debris of the house that used to be the house of Abu Hatab family. This is the 3rd day of the Eid, where one of the mothers that were killed yesterday night came over to this house with her children, hoping to celebrate some of the Eid among the family, as the airstrikes have been intensified on the Gaza Strip. They came from the eastern neighborhood of Al-Shija'iyya, where the Israeli tank shells were intensified on the eastern parts of Gaza City. They thought that they will be able to get some secure moments, some safe moments with this at this house in the center, in the heart of Gaza City, that is away from the border lines. This is indicating that there's no safe place and safe time in the Gaza Strip for the time being.
We were exposed to such powerful shelling that our home was severely damaged. The people who were attacked during this shelling are simply civilians.
What happens is a crime, and the world just can't remain quiet about it. But because it is Israel attacking, the world is silent. It's because Israel seems to be above the law.
This is a big disaster, really a big one. Imagine a whole family has been killed.
The Al-Barej site, another refugee camp located in the Gaza Strip, was also hit by airstrikes. Incredible footage, isn't it? Local health officials claim a woman and her 3 children were among those killed on Friday in a strike. Since the start of the week, at least 155 people have lost their lives in Gaza, including dozens of children. Over 1,000 Palestinians have been wounded. Juliet Touma, UNICEF's regional chief of communications, spoke to the program earlier.
Violence should stop. Violence, wherever it is, should come to an end. Violence will not bring a solution. Violence will only bring more violence. And with that, it means that children will suffer first and they will suffer most. And so violence needs to come to an end. Only in the past 5 days, we have reported that at least 40 children have been killed in the Gaza Strip. It's a terrible situation. 1,000 people have been reported injured. We are giving supplies to medical facilities. That's what we are focusing on right now. And we also work in the water area, and we also document what's happening. Worth noting that UNICEF has been present on the ground for more than 50 years in the Gaza Strip and across the state of Palestine. And so it is important that we do have supplies. So what we're doing is we're seeing where the needs are so that we are able to send the supplies to those who need them most. And the needs right now are most in the medical area, so that health workers are able to provide assistance to the wounded, among them many children. We do hope that the violence does not escalate any further, and it's a call on parties to the conflict to take a step back, to de-escalate, to consider children, to stop the violence, and to bring a solution, not via violence, to this crisis.
Well, what has been happening most of this week are air raid warnings ringing out across Tel Aviv. Saturday, no different. Hamas said it had launched dozens of rockets towards the Israeli city. Let's take a look at the suburb of Ramat Gan. A 55-year-old man died there in a rocket strike. According to reports, he didn't have time to reach a bomb shelter. He didn't have one in his home either. With more on the latest developments, here's Paula Sleer.
I'm here in the Israeli neighborhood of Ramat Gan, which is just outside Tel Aviv. A short time ago, 2 rockets landed here. One has landed in the streets. We know that a 50-year-old man in his 50s has been killed. He died in the ambulance on the way to hospital. Now, just looking at the damage, the entire side of one building has been destroyed. At the same time, the debris is still lying all over the place. Ambulances have been hurrying past, carrying people who are injured. We understand that a number of people have been injured, and a crowd has gathered with people quite angry and quite concerned about what is happening here.
I was walking through Bialik Street, and there was a siren, you know. I enter a stairway there, and after 10-15 minutes I woke up and I saw the smoke coming from here. It was black smoke. I saw it close to me.
Actually, it's a situation that we unfortunately used to see. It's the first time that it was so close to me. I live like 7 minutes from here. I came exactly when I heard the news.
Now the rocket struck over there. We understand that it hit the building. It's not clear to us whether the person who died was next to the car that has completely gone up in flames or was in the building itself. The police are making an effort to push all of us out of the area. They certainly are concerned that there could be more rockets any moment. Now, I was a short distance from here when this happened, and there were a number of explosions in the sky. That was as the Iron Dome anti-missile defense system intercepted the rockets. There were at least about 6 explosions that I counted. So the situation here certainly tense.
People in our town have reacted to this latest shelling rather calmly. If it was in London or Paris, people there would have panicked. We are already used to this, but it still hurts. It's also Shabbat. People had gone to the synagogue, and when they came back they saw they had no home anymore. It's hard, but we're strong and we're giving our support to the government and the army.
This is part of a barrage of rockets that Hamas sent into Israel on Saturday afternoon. It says that it is in retaliation for a strike that killed a family of 10. Now, there have been sirens also sounding in the south of the country, in the border communities of Ashkelon and Ashdod. We've heard from the Israeli army that since Friday they have fired, or they have at least struck, some 20 rocket launches in Gaza. As you can see, this corner shop has been completely destroyed. The mannequins are lying down. We're being pushed back by the police, but there's glass everywhere. This is a residential area, so the only people who would have been here on a Saturday afternoon are people who live in the area. A few of the shops were open, but most of them have been closed because of the rocket barrages that have been coming in from Gaza. Today is the 6th straight day of fighting. At this point in time, the rockets coming in from Gaza and the Israeli airstrikes onto Gaza don't show any sign of letting up. Paul Islier, RT, Ramat Gan.
Also on Saturday, an Israeli airstrike destroyed a high-rise building housing bureaus of the world's media in Gaza. The 11-story building which housed Al Jazeera and the Associated Press was destroyed by missiles. The Israeli army said Hamas was using it to coordinate rocket attacks. It also had private apartments and business offices and was evacuated prior to the attack after a warning from Israel. A local reporter witnessed the explosions and talked to an Al Jazeera journalist there.
Oh my God, that's what's going now, right now. It's being hit grossly right now. It's now being hit largely and sporadically. This means that it's being already destroyed completely by the Israeli warplanes. That's what we are witnessing, and the whole world is witnessing with us via RT TV. One more hit, 2 more missiles, and the building is now dead. It's dead now. It's dead by means of Israeli missiles. It's already leveled to the ground right now at this second, as you see in the camera. We're heading now for the place, for the Al Jalaa building that was standing a few minutes ago before it was striken by the Israeli warplanes. You see here the crowds of people are gathering around the building. Many of these people are those who used to live in this building. That's the scene right now in the territory. A great deal of anger and rage is ripping through the region at many ways for the time being.
Now our picture cut. Now we will not be able to deliver our picture to the world. It's very difficult to me to see this image. It's very hard. For many years I'm working this place, covering the news, covering the wars, the attacks on Gaza. Now there's no picture from Al Jazeera office anymore. Something, I feel very bad. I want to say that we will continue to deliver our message. We will continue to cover the news in Gaza, and we will continue to tell the message of the Palestinian people and to deliver it to all over the world. Okay, they won't be able to stop our voice by attacking our building. This won't be easy. No, we will continue. This won't be easy. If they attack our building and destroy it, we will continue from anywhere from Gaza. All the offices of journalists of Gaza, it will be our office.
A member of Fatah's Revolutionary Council, which is part of the Palestinian Parliament, Dimitri Diliani, says there's no end to the escalation in sight.
Well, of course it's going to continue. It's in Netanyahu's political interest to strengthen the right wing in Israel, his bloc, which is basically works on fear-mongering, and that's their job. Hamas saw an opportunity also to slap back Mahmoud Abbas for postponing indefinitely the elections. So it plays politically for the two leaders, and civilians pay the price. Now, having said that, you have give also the difference on the crimes and the massacres that are committed by the state of Israel. They're nothing compared to what Hamas is retaliating in back. I believe that there's political interest for both sides to escalate and not to have any sign of ceasefire at this moment in order to gain more politically. The spokesperson of the foreign ministry is totally detached from the world. Who's killing who? What is he talking about? There are F-16s are bombing apartment buildings, shopping centers, businesses, schools, sports facilities, in return for these pipes that they have sent out 200 and they have killed 9. I know one life is too much, but you cannot compare 9 to 137 and more than 1,000 injured. You cannot compare that, and you cannot compare the abilities of Hamas and other resistance factions in Gaza with the ability of the strongest state in the Middle East.
Okay, some fresh lines coming into as anti-Israeli protests have broken out on Israel's doorstep, with pro-Palestinian demonstrators in several Middle East countries taking to the streets to condemn the violence. Around 1,000 Jordanians have been demonstrating on the border with Israel for a second day now to show solidarity with Palestinians in Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. Police clashed with protesters using tear gas to disperse the crowds. Demonstrators were chanting "Down with Israel" as they marched to the frontier. Several anti-Israel protests also took place in the Jordanian capital and other parts of the country. A pro-Palestinian rally also held in Lebanon. Now, a small group of protesters actually crossed the border into Israel and were shot upon by IDF forces. According to local media, a 21-year-old protester was hit by Israeli fire and died of his wounds. The Lebanese army and security forces were deployed to disperse the protesters. Earlier, I discussed the unrest in the region with Middle East and defense analyst Dan Pfefferman.
Tensions and the protests and what we see in Israel's neighboring countries shows us how much of a tinderbox the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is to the surrounding region. What's important here is that those countries, the governments, fully understand that it is Hamas that must stop the rocket fire, that Hamas is the instigator, and so they're going to try to do, as we see, everything they can to keep those protesters in. Sadly, the protesters, the people on the street, do not understand this dynamic, and naturally they're sympathetic to the Palestinians in this case. It's understandable because the video footage you see on the news is much more dramatic and much more tragic on the Palestinian side. We here on our side, while 2,000 rockets is incredibly difficult, we know how to defend ourselves because we've poured billions of dollars over the years to build up defensive capabilities to protect ourselves from Hamas and Hezbollah rockets if need be. So that just goes to show you that the governments full well understand who is at fault here, and hopefully they will continue to control the protesters as much as possible.
And just to leave the region and move to Europe and Paris, riot police were deployed there to break up pro-Palestinian protests on Saturday. Dozens of demonstrators were detained. Demonstrators are condemning Israel's use of force in Gaza, chanting slogans and holding banners reading "Israel is a murderer" and "End the genocide." Activists gathered in the French capital despite a ban by authorities over fears of violence. The French Interior Minister called for the protest to be blocked, and over 4,000 officers were mobilized in the city in all. Pro-Palestinian rallies also taking place in other cities across the country, including Marseille, Lyon, and in Germany. Clashes and arrests in Berlin here, with a pro-Palestinian rally there too. The marches coincide with the annual Nakba Day, which marks the expulsion of Palestinians from contested land after the state of Israel was created over 70 years ago. And in Greece, pro-Palestinian supporters, they rallied too next to the Israeli embassy in Athens. Scuffles broke out after around 500 activists faced off with police. Meanwhile, a top prosecutor at the International Criminal Court has warned Palestinian militants and Israel that they may both be subject to investigation. In early March this year, the court opened a probe into possible war crimes in the Palestinian territories, which dates back to Israel's operation in the Gaza Strip 7 years ago, 2014. The ongoing investigation is looking into crimes allegedly committed by individuals or groups of people. Israeli security forces were accused by Palestinians and some activists of targeting civilians and critical infrastructure in Gaza, including schools and hospitals. Palestinian militants were also accused of firing indiscriminately into Israeli civilian populated areas. Well, the two sides reacted quite differently to the launch of the probe, with Palestinians hailing it as, quote, necessary and urgent, while Israel rejected the allegations and refused to cooperate with the ICC, calling into question its authority and jurisdiction too. Both those sentiments were echoed by our guests earlier.
The international community is doing nothing to stop Israel. They are just watching. Even condemnation, the Security Council is not available for the Palestinians. They are hopeless, they are helpless, and they feel desperate. And this is what led to Israeli policies. Israel is trying to find a way to cancel the ICC procedures against Israel. They are waiting the British Prosecutor General to take his place next month, and they think that he could change the decision of the one who is supposed to become the ex-Prosecutor General Fatou bin Soda.
Listen, even the head of the court of the Hague is a Muslim. Did you know that? From Gambia, I believe. She is a Muslim. She is biased on the first place. Before even speaking about the problem between us and Palestinians, she is biased by the fact that she was raised as a Muslim there in Gambia. They declare and use anti-Semite, anti-Jewish decisions. We do not expect any judgment to be made by this court. More than this, the High Supreme Court of Israel, we are judging ourselves objectively, and a lot of times when we have problems with the bad behavior of our officers or soldiers, we judge them and put them in jail. We show what we do.
Okay, moving the program on now. A free lift to get your vaccine and then a burger to reward you after you've had it. That's the plan of the White House, which has recruited Uber and McDonald's, among others, to drive up COVID shot rates. It is all part of President Biden's ambitious target to vaccinate 70% of U.S. adults by, when else, Independence Day. Here's the take of RT's Dimitri Pauk.
Have you heard about these things called COVID vaccines? Yeah, apparently they're all the craze right now. I mean, I wouldn't have heard about them unless I was constantly bombarded with calls to get vaccinated. I mean, seriously, how many people do they think live under rocks? We get it, you want us to get vaccinated, but the advertisements are getting outright annoying. And as if there weren't enough of them, Lyft, Uber, and McDonald's have partnered with the White House to spread the message even further. A White House that, at this point, seems kinda desperate. Lyft and Uber will now offer free trips to vaccination sites, while McDonald's will bombard their customers with "We can do this" coffee cups and stickers, as well as a giant billboard on Times Square. And if all of that doesn't convince the public to come to their senses, politicians are ready to lay down their careers for the cause.
There's a lot of good reasons to get vaccinated, but for some of them, you know, if you need another one, go get vaccinated so you're alive to vote against me in the next election. I don't care. I just want to get it done.
All these attempts have had some effect. Over the last 5 months, there have been significantly less COVID vaccine skeptics, but there are still huge segments of the population which are far from convinced. And the media has been trying anything they can to persuade these people, bombard them with ads, appeal to their human decency, ridicule them in comedy sketches. Everything just seems to backfire.
Hey, I'm Dr. Tevin Jones, and welcome to What Will You Take It? The game show where I tried to convince my family to take the COVID vaccine.
But politicians won't sleep until all these people are inoculated. So I guess we'll just wait and see what other crazy strategies they come up with to convince a bunch of people to put a needle in their arm for the greater good. In the meantime, enjoy lockdowns, social distancing, and hearing about vaccinations day and night, even if you've already followed all the steps.
Irish nationalist leaders have accused the British Prime Minister of shielding former soldiers from justice over a number of killings in Belfast in 1971. Earlier, Boris Johnson, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, apologised on behalf of the UK government for the mistakes of the past, but not everybody is convinced by it.
The government profoundly regrets and is truly sorry for these events, and how investigations after these terrible events were handled, and for the additional pain that the families have had to endure in their fight to clear the names of their loved ones.
Joan Connolly was a mother of 8. She was shot by the British Army 4 times. She was left lying on the ground for hours to die. That is not an error. That is sheer bloody murder. Will the Secretary of State ask the Prime Minister to come out of hiding, come with me, meet the Ballymurphy families and tell them to their faces why he wants to protect their killers?
Where is the Prime Minister today, and why has he not publicly apologised to the Ballymurphy families and to this House? Will he take responsibility as Prime Minister and show the victims the respect they so obviously deserve?
Earlier, a court declared that 10 civilians killed in Belfast 50 years ago in disputed shootings involving British soldiers were entirely innocent. It found the British Army responsible for 9 of the 10 deaths in the Ballymurphy massacre in August 1971, which included a mother of 8 and a Catholic priest giving last rites to a wounded man. However, this week, the UK government unveiled plans for new laws to address the legacy of the past in Northern Ireland. It includes blocking former soldiers from prosecution for any killings committed before 1998's Good Friday peace deal. But Alistair MacDonald, former leader of the SDLP and Irish Nationalist Party in Northern Ireland, says families of the Ballymurphy victims deserve a detailed investigation and a sincere apology from London.
These were not terrorists. These were not people who were engaged in any sort of illegal activity or militant activity. They were people trying to go about their daily lives, and in turn, some of the people that were shot were people who went to the aid of other innocent people that were shot. And it was very brutal, and the families have spent 50 years agitating for justice. What people are looking for now is some sort of accountability and a genuine apology from the Prime Minister and an acceptance that the army were totally wrong here and murderous in their intention would have gone a long way towards that, towards holding accountability. But a half-hearted, mealy-mouthed apology is seen as just that, and it's basically people are not happy with it. People feel that it's not sincere.
Alistair MacDonald. Well, that is our news roundup for now, but if you'd like to delve deeper into any of those stories, do make sure to stop by our website. We're back at the top. Hope you can join me then too.